So, my life before Christ. I grew up knowing about God as a small child. My mother taught me about the Lord, and we would go to a small church in Lancaster. It was the Church of Christ. Other times accompanied by other family members. At random times throughout the younger part of my life, we had some extenuating circumstances, and we would have to leave our home, and we would travel to Washington, where we would be around other families and believers, and I would see my mother praying there as well at different times. As I grew older and circumstances changed, but dynamics didn't, I personally pulled my thoughts and my mind away from looking towards the Lord and focused on myself and everything I wanted, partying and doing other negative things in my life. When I married my wife Daisy at the age of 34, we started working on a blended family. Our daughter Autumn was 8, and Zachary, our newborn. In my mind, I had the ideal family scenario, 1 boy and 1 girl. Just a couple months after Zachary's 2nd birthday, our son got really sick, and we found out he was stricken with a rare form of cancer, which devastated us beyond belief. This is when I came to see the true power of Lord in prayer. My wife Daisy and I started praying for healing. The next thing we knew, there were prayer warriors all over the country. And I worked in a job where there were people that would come. It was in the service industry in a motorhome place. And so there was a little collection container that was there that people would put money in, and then they would ask questions. And so these people that traveled all around the country, pretty soon we were receiving letters and all kinds of things telling us about God and believe and trust in Him. There were cards, and we were overwhelmed with God's hand in this situation. We never stopped praying, and to this day continue to give thanks for the healing that Zachary received. So I truly believe that without receiving God into my life, we may not have stayed together through the situation with our son and situations later that arose with our daughter, as well as day-to-day life. Without God, we were partial, and with Him, we're whole. In Deuteronomy 4:29, it says, "But if from there you seek the Lord your God, you will find Him, if you seek Him with all your heart and with all your soul."
I didn't grow up in a Christian home. My parents divorced when I was 2, and I grew up in a blended family with adults who struggled with abuse and addictions. No one spoke of God unless it was derogatory or in vain. My dad taught me the Lord's Prayer when I was very young, but he did not attend church and does not live a Christian life. I had some exposure to the Lord when I would attend church services with my paternal grandparents, and it was then that I learned some of the basic Bible stories, but nothing much past that. This was only while I was quite young, excuse me, and my grandmother would often refer to her faith or the Lord's commandments when she was trying to guide me in the right direction, but I didn't hear or heed her worry or her warnings. By the time I was 13, my life began to rapidly fill up with poor choices, and I never once thought of God in all those difficult moments, only myself and my desire to try to control what was happening around me and to me. When I couldn't control a situation, I would run from it, bouncing back and forth between my parents several times. I attended 5 high schools by the time I graduated and was a mother of a 2-year-old with a 4-year history of several tragic decisions. Fast forward 6 years, and 3 failed relationships later, and I met my husband. By this time, I was desperately seeking stability and security. Within a year of meeting my husband, we were married, and our son was born, and I was drowning in a marriage that I truly had no idea how to participate in. God had only been in our vows and had not been invited into our marriage. And issues between us escalated quickly. We're fighting and arguing. It became daily routine, and my urge to run was constantly sitting in the front of my mind. I didn't believe that my husband loved me, respected me, or wanted me in his life, and these feelings only grew stronger with time. So when our son was given an early stage 4 cancer diagnosis in 2006, I felt as though someone had placed a brick wall in front of me, and I was numb, lost, and desperately grasping for any strings of hope that were offered. It was at this time that my grandparents got their church involved, and it was at this point that we experienced a love from strangers that was amazing. And this was my turning point. These people didn't know us, but were willing to help us through this season in our life. They loved us, supported us, and constantly lifted us up in prayer. As the Lord worked through those wonderful people to not only save me, but my marriage. 6 months into my son's treatment, I gave my life to the Lord. I finally started to realize that God was in control of whatever was going to be the outcome of Zachary's situation. And that he would be with me, whichever way it went. And it's been 11 years since my son's diagnosis, and I can look back and see that in those extremely hard times and the difficult times that later transpired with my daughter, that the Lord was strengthening me, preparing me, and walking with me the whole time. He knew I loved my husband and that we would need each other for these difficult times and the times to come. And he lifted the veil of lies that the devil had convinced me were true. And in a situation where over 80% of marriages fails, ours began to thrive. My life has never been perfect, and it isn't still, but I still try to have control and struggle with letting the devil creep into my mind and plant those doubts. I have a hope I didn't have before now, a strength I didn't think I'd ever gain, and a peace in my life that no matter what, the Lord will always be there and that he'll see me through. And Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight."